Okay, welcome to the bi-weekly meeting for working group API expression. We got one agenda item from somebody external. Let's see if they're here. Can't see them so far. Anton, should we discuss it anyways?
I've added the
Okay.
item. Somebody mentioned something, sorry, on Slack, so I thought we could discuss it today. That's why I added it to.
Let's find the link. There we go.
Yes.
Yes. So the question was some kind of Terraform-like behavior. You can form a plan from diff and review it and then apply the plan, and it will get executed if there is no changes. And yeah, I read through it and commented a little.
Yeah. The thing is that if you see conflicts, and then you say, let's say you run kubectl apply and it says you have conflict, you should false, and then you run kubectl apply and you false. There may have been a change in between, and you're going to false fields that you were unaware of, because maybe you would have different conflicts as you reapply. You have a race condition, right? So the question is, how can we make it so that when you reapply the second time, we know that you're not changing anything, or that nothing has changed in between?
So this is all new to me. I have some basic stupid questions here. What would constitute a conflict?
If you're trying to change a field that somebody else has changed.
Is that really, if we just start from kind of the use case, the appropriate definition? It's that what we're calling out here is to some external approver. I don't see a bound on what the external approver is considering when making his approval.
What do you mean approval?
Well, I guess this Slack entry here talks about somebody making a plan and some person or thing approving that plan.
Right, yeah.
That approval would be contingent on some facts, perhaps, that may change. I mean, I guess the plan is contingent perhaps on some facts that may change. So, thinking about this in terms of, say, comparing with database technology, we think about a database transaction has a read set and a write set. And what we have not done here in this vision here is capture the read set. So we don't really, I see, have a handle on accurately detecting what would be conflicting change.
So the conflict we were talking about was a server-side apply conflict.
I understand that. I'm challenging whether.
Yeah.
I understand that's what the answer you gave is. What I'm challenging is whether that's the right answer.
So
what do you mean right answer? Do you mean that's what is it what we should have done, or is it properly describing what we've done?
I mean, for the scenario here, the use case outlined in this Slack entry, this describes a transaction that is taking place over an extended period of time.
Yeah.
And usually when we think about transactions, we think about they have a read set and a write set. And what you're saying, the answer you gave me is a conflict in the write set. And I'm saying that usually when we think about transactions, there are also conflicts with the read set as possible, and kind of, again, explaining it, bringing it back to the use case, right? Somebody made a plan based on reading some stuff, okay?
Mm-hmm.
and we don't even necessarily know everything they read. That's not being captured here. So if some of the stuff that they read in making the plan changes before the plan executes, the vision I see here isn't going to notice that conflict.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how we're gonna fix that, to be honest. But we could
One
think
question I
about
have:
it.
should and do we want to support this kind of workflow? Is it?
Yeah, I think it's part of the. I think it's part of the. It is part of the workflow. I mean, if you have a conflict and you want to force the conflict, then you should more or less know what you're forcing.
Yeah.
So the way to fix it would be to have an explicit representation of the read set. And
Right.
we can
As
do
in
that.
asserting preconditions?
Preconditions would be
asserting conditions. In the general form, of course.
Taking what we already have, would it help to take the new changes and apply them with a different manager, not force them or even dry run them, better dry run them, and see if you get a conflict for the new changes, and take the conflicts in consideration when you review your change. So you're also reviewing, forcing those conflicts. That still doesn't help with the changes while being reviewed, but also it includes the forces.
I don't see it. One of the preconditions could be, yes, I'm fine with these conflicts and these conflicts only. So if any new conflict happens in between, then it's gonna fail. But I don't know how we would do that. We'd need some sort of API so that we can say, I'm fine with these conflicts. We don't have any semantics like this today.
I'm kind of building fields you can ignore when applying, but that doesn't change. So, well, it also changes the output object of the merge right now. So
yeah.
That won't work.
No, that's not a good fit. I see how it seems similar, but it's not a good fit, I think.
Yeah.
So anyways, do you have any suggestion, Mike?
Well, first off, I think you're talking about multiple issues at once. I just need to slow down and think it through one step at a time. So you mostly, well, somewhat been talking about issues of if the conflict is detected and then there's some kind of a force. I'm just sort of at the beginning of how we're going to detect a conflict. So one technique for the representation of the read set in a way that would detect a conflict would be, in fact, to augment the writes with simply writing everything that was read. No, that's not right. Let's see, is that right? No, that's not right. That would not be right in this case. So, yeah, I guess I'm thinking the most direct approach would be to, have a general concept of precondition. And I could test, any field's content, or any bit of substructured content. I think it would probably suffice for our purposes here. Do I believe this? It would suffice. It would be overly kind of strict test potentially, but if we simply had a literal comparison of content, then the question of force, I think force really amounts to, I'm really not comfortable with, usually what you do, yeah, I'm trying to say something like it would be just preparing a new transaction, saying, okay, that one didn't go through, given the current state. Now here's the new transaction that I want.
Yeah, but anytime you do that, you're going to have some sort of race condition, right?
And that's the problem with a concurrent system. Yes, if you want to, so there's this idea of optimistic concurrency control, where you say, okay, I'm going to bet that there usually isn't a conflict, and as long as that's true, it'll go through. You'll occasionally get a conflict and have to retry. You have to keep retrying. Well, you can't get a live lock where everybody has to keep retrying, because someone has to retry only if someone succeeded in making a change. All right, and the alternative is locking, which I think we know we don't want to do. So so I think this is in the spirit of the way the system we have is working.
Yeah. I don't know if it's, this notion of a conflict, I don't know if it's super obvious yet to you what it is. It's not exactly, we don't have a, the conflict is only between, I don't know how I'm going to phrase that. But the conflicts can happen over a long time, right? If somebody changes a field, like the replicas, the number of replicas, and then later you change it without you don't even need to read the file before you make the change, right? When you do apply, you don't read the resource. So you just send a new value for this replica. And if this value is different and you're not the same manager, then you're gonna get a conflict. So it's not a read, modify, write type of conflict. So it's very different from, let's say, a database.
Yeah, I'm not denying those conflicts. I'm saying in addition to those conflicts, there are other conflicts that it seems to me this use case calls into consideration.
Yeah. I don't know how we're gonna fix that yet, but I agree with you. We need some sort of precondition.
So the workflow that's slightly different to what they outlined is you have your manifests in Git, you make a change, you get a diff, you review it as a pull request, and you don't need to read the state, and you could apply this with server-side apply and get conflicts when there are some. And there wouldn't be a read involved, and it would just conflict if some other actor than your CI pipeline changes the object. So I don't know if that would be a better suggestion, not to do it with the diff, but track the configs you use and apply.
So the thing about
on the main system.
The thing about Git is that it is not expected to be sufficient. So while Git may succeed in doing a merge, nobody believes that necessarily produces working code, right? We always test after doing that merge.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Anybody with any sense does thorough testing after a merge, because there's no reason to believe that even if a Git succeeds in its sense of merge, that it has actually done a semantically valid synthesis of 2 lines of development.
Yes. Does anybody want to work on this bug right now?
Is it a bug or is it a requested feature?
Yeah, it's probably a feature.
One point that came up for me. I didn't know about the prudent parameter yet. That's amazing that it exists. We searched for that a few years ago. But do we want to? I haven't tried. I know it's in beta or alpha on kubectl. I don't know what it does, where it happens, if it's a CLI thing. But
Yeah.
do we want to support this? Can we support it with server-side apply?
I mean, this has very little to do with what we're doing.
Yeah, probably. It should delete any object in a namespace that's label, or I think in a namespace that's matching a label or all, and not in the applied config. So I think it's a CLI thing, but I haven't checked.
Actually, cool. You might delete something else. Keep going, Kevin. Sorry, I cut you.
No, I was done. So what I found was here.
Yeah. Did you read that first line
above? Yeah,
at
it's
the
an author
top?
disclaimer, and
Yeah, it's very broken. I mean, you probably should not use this feature.
yeah, I clicked the issue and it wasn't about prudent, so I wasn't even sure if it should be in there.
Oh, that makes no sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So
but prune is broken anyway. You should probably not use it.
okay, yeah, that's good to know.
Okay, I don't know if we're gonna solve that today. We should probably move on.
Okay.
It's good that we discussed it though.
Should we get back to them, or what should we do about it?
Have we
Make an issue?
Yeah, that's a good point. Let's make an issue.
Okay. I can do that.
I'm gonna mention that in the notes.
Okay. Then we switch documents and start with client side to server side to transition. I don't know if there's Julian here.
Do we wanna, Tim, Mike, do you guys have plans? Do you wanna talk about your thing first?
Oh yeah.
I have to confess, I didn't get any more work done.
I'm only here because I wanted to see if something gets chosen off the mission statement.
Oh, the mission statement.
Not only I'm interested, but I looked at the agenda and it said, well, if everything's under control, let's pick a next topic off the mission statement. I wanted to see what was
over that as well, but we also get a lot of work items, so I don't know which you prefer.
That's fine. We don't need to pick a new item. I just was curious to see.
So everything in here is apply related. If somebody wants to focus on something else, I think that's okay, but most of us probably are busy with apply still. And we got.
I think Daniel added the item about the mission statement. I was curious why this was here, to be honest.
Probably in case we finish apply.
I see.
What was he smoking?
Yeah, that's the question, right?
Finishing apply. Yeah. So then we had many issues in here. I'm not sure which one are actively worked on. I saw a few more tests failing with the transition on GitHub, but I didn't check into them. Do you know something more, Anton?
I've looked at some of these. I think it's being mostly worked on by Julian. He's making progress, but it's not finished yet. We're getting there though.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So
Yeah, I'm gonna say one word about this sentence here. What is the interaction between mixed kubectl version?
You know, interestingly, that the thing that's highlighted in yellow is really an echo of what we were just talking about as well, right? What if somebody, they use apply and it, you know, they made a plan based on some assumptions and the assumptions turned out to not be true.
So, yeah, in the general sense. With, yeah,
what does override do right now?
that's a good question. I think it's -- force, not override. But maybe we have so many options in kubectl.
Yeah, when I had the
Override,
override.
automatically resolve conflict. Oh wow. There's another flag for the conflicts.
Oh, it's a CLI thing for current apply.
Yeah. Maybe we should have used that. I don't know. It's a little different. So, but yes, because of these items, I think we can't release kubectl apply 119 with the server-side apply as the default, especially because of the line, the mixed kubectl versions, and that's because default associative keys are missing doesn't work today.
And we have to keep two versions supported.
Yes, right. That's the plan.
Two, yeah.
So if we make this work in 119, then we can't have the default before 120.
Okay.
Wait a minute, slow down. Do I understand correctly that you are saying, you are implying that operators who deploy and operate Kubernetes are required to get version 119 deployed before they can deploy, running before they can deploy 120?
I'm not sure I completely understood the use case you mentioned, but I don't think so. This is because kubectl and kube API server usually are only tested to have one version difference at most. This is mostly a thing between kube API server and kubectl.
Yes, okay, so that helps. So that's a little different requirement. But I think
Are you thinking about fly and go?
I'm just trying to figure out about the implications for you know, consumers of Kubernetes. So, you know, expecting everybody to track every release is, I thought, something we didn't do. I thought we let them be more lax.
No, we don't let people skip upgrade. If you're on 18 and you want to get to 20, you have to tag up at 19.
I see. Interesting. Thank you.
Oh, you're talking about
I didn't
upgrades
know.
now.
Either. I think I skipped between versions myself many times.
Well, to be fair, you're allowed. You can do whatever you want, right?
Yeah.
But we're not verifying or certifying in any way that an upgrade from 11 to 20 is going to work.
Or even from 18 to 20. You have to go through 19.
Correct.
Yeah.
The trodden tested path is 19 to 20.
Okay, thank you.
But this is a little different, right? The question is, what if you have updated kubectl to 119, which is going to default to server-side apply, but your API server is still 118 and doesn't support some features in server-side apply yet? It would mean that kubectl would use server-side apply by default, but it wouldn't behave as expected because the server is not ready. So we've got to be careful with that.
Yes, so at least on everything, you know, that gets deployed as a running process, I thought the rule was you upgrade the kube API servers first.
Yeah, but who knows what people are doing with kubectl? I mean, I agree with you, but who knows?
I didn't realize we made an exception for kubectl. Oh, okay.
I know that kubectl can get installed by your distribution maybe, and then we're very careful at Google to make sure that we release the right version of kubectl, but I don't know if everyone is doing that. So it's hard to know what version of kubectl people are using. I wouldn't be surprised if people have massive gaps sometimes. But yeah, we've got to be careful. We at least should support one version difference. This is the guideline we have.
Right. I'm just a little surprised that you're going both directions. But okay, I understand the reason. I'm not gonna complain. You're making life easier for consumers, which I generally like.
Harder for us.
Yeah. So yeah, defaulted associative keys are missing. I see Jenny's missing. I wish we could have had a status on that.
I'm here. I can talk about that, but I haven't made the cap yet. So there's
What's Jenny? Where are you, Jenny?
I'm in the meeting.
Oh, I see. Okay, the UI was not showing you. So yeah, you haven't done the cap yet, you said?
No, I should be able to send it out for review soon, though.
Do you have any timeline for the feature?
Well, we want it by 119. We want it for 119, right? So.
Yeah, I mean,
guess,
do you have any more fine-grained timeline than that?
I guess I'll send the cap out either today or tomorrow, and then I don't know. We'll see what people think about it.
Yeah, that's probably gonna have some discussion. Thank you, Jenny.
Cool. Then we have an example of a field handling policy.
I haven't had time to work on that, unfortunately.
Okay. Oh, it was the delete drop fields. I remember. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we need to discuss it or continue?
We need examples. We'll discuss when we have the examples.
Okay. Then status wiping. I updated my PR. Don't know if you had time to look at it. Probably not. And yeah, I cleaned up a little more. I removed the testing stuff, and yeah, there is still. Wait, where is it? I mean, we don't have to discuss the PR itself, but you had a question about removing it from storing in cache, I think, and passing the version on every request, other ignore fields.
Yeah. And
I'm not sure if we have to, as we create a field manager per resource and version, I thought.
Yeah, that's we should talk with Jenny about that.
Oh no, that's wrong.
The problem we have, Jenny, is that we have one field manager per version, right? Per group kind version.
Right. And this is internal version.
Yeah, no, the thing is that we know what field we want to ignore for each version, but we're also doing conversions in the field manager. So we need to know about the fields to ignore for each version, right?
Yeah, that's true. I didn't think of that before.
Okay, but I know how to. I think I have an idea how to fix it, Kevin. I'll suggest that in the PR.
Okay. I mean, we could.
And I saw your comment about the cache. I saw your comment about the cache, so this is also easy to fix. And for the version, I think you can take all the we have a map with the field set for each version. So you could take the entire map in the field manager.
Yeah, it's yeah.
Right?
The version set thing, I think.
Yeah.
So we would hand all
So-
versions to the field manager.
Yeah, the field manager would take all the versions.
Yeah, I'll try.
Cool. Awesome.
Apply changed. I saw.
Yeah, I
discussion
created a
about
PR.
this.
It'd be nice maybe if Clayton disagrees. I talked to him yesterday. He thinks it's wrong. I think he's right. At least he made good points. We don't know yet how to do that.
What did you mean? Return the generation as a resource version instead of true?
No, okay, yeah, I got confused by that comment myself. But what he meant is that because of the change in the encryption key or the storage version or the code version of the storage server, because of that, we can rewrite the object even if nothing changed. So if the storage version, yeah, if the storage version changes, for example, we're going to rewrite to etcd even if nothing changed, which means that we're going to say configured on the kubectl CLI, even though, I mean, indeed we changed something. At least we saved something, but nothing changed. So that's super confusing. So now we don't know exactly what the output should be and what the user is expecting. Do they expect to know that something changed or that something was persisted, even if it's the same thing? It's super
It's
unclear.
just what we name the variable, right? I mean, or what we name the field, because this, we can't know whether the storage version changed is the reason that we persisted something or not. We need to make it clear that that's what we're telling them. We're not saying that they actually made a change, right?
Yeah, but is it useful for the user? Like, what is the user going to think if they see, oh, I've changed all my things, everything was configured, and maybe it's just the server who changed the storage version or the encryption key or whatever.
This is what we already do.
I mean, no, kubectl says configured only if it sends a patch.
When I first wrote up the cap, I think my suggestion was to figure out if we merged something. So if the resulting object changed, not if we increase a generation, would that still be an option of some way to figure out after merging that we changed the object?
Yeah, that's an alternative. I think it makes sense. Do we believe we've made any change? Is what we care about?
Yeah.
We wouldn't be able to do that for update, but it doesn't matter as much.
So we just need to know, we already check if the merged object changed, right? Because we use that to determine if we should change the timestamp. So I think maybe that's what we could just expose, whether the timestamp of the applier changed.
That's a good idea. Yeah, we could figure it out in a different way, and we can do it probably for update too. I mean, for update, we know if somebody has stolen some fields or not, so we must know if there was a difference. Okay, that's a good idea. Let's suggest that.
I'll leave a comment on there.
Thank you.
Okay. We still have no one working on sub-resources, and I think I will stick for a while. Or do you know more?
Wait, give me 1 minute. Oh, this is, yeah, that, I'm just tracking this because I think it's useful to know the status of this, but Jordan is doing his thing.
No, I meant the sub-resources.
Oh, you're
we still
talking
didn't
about
do anything there.
Oh yeah, I forgot this one, no.
And I think Joe's here. Do you want to talk about this one?
Sorry, this is, oh yeah. So I've been doing a little bit of reading through the code and exploring all the validation use cases in Kubernetes native types to try and understand where we could start transitioning from a lot of handwritten code to annotations and schema-driven stuff for things. So there had already been work done in unions and immutability along that line. So there's cups up for both of those. I was looking at various different formats, places where we could be using existing annotations like the unique map key rule and stuff like that. So I don't have a lot of conclusions yet, but I've been exploring that code and reading a lot of the validation. So I'll try and get something written up, and maybe we can talk about that in the upcoming weeks. I don't know if that maps with any of the other kind of mission statements of Working Group Apply, but it feels like it's kind of in that direction, trying to transition towards like more schema-driven stuff.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
Yeah, I would agree. Joe, are you thinking about things like for a string specifying a regex or something that they have to match?
Yeah. So one of the major classes that we have of validations is what you could call formats. So anything from like a DNS name to an IP address in all its two different formats, CIDRs, things like that. It's usually something that can be expressed against a single string or a single primitive field. Regex is, of course, a general purpose thing that you could have for it. You could have very specific ones that are really well defined too.
Right. Are you thinking also about like numeric constraints on numbers as well?
Yeah, and some of this you get through OpenAPI. So for example, OpenAPI already has the notion of like constraints, inclusive, exclusive constraints on number range, on the cardinality of a list or a map, and things like that. And we do quite a bit of that. In our validations, there's a lot of like mins and maxes. Like you can have a timeout, but the min can only be 10 seconds, the max can only be 30 seconds. So you see that throughout our code. The nice thing about that is since it's already an open API in a well-defined way, we can kind of just hook onto that.
So, and I think you said something about constraints that involve multiple fields.
So my general take on these is that they're one of the less tractable ones to take on early. There's a bunch of really low-hanging fruit here that maps really nicely to things that we already have or an open API schema are really well defined. Things like cross-field constraints, like what would you do in a CRD? You would probably end up having like a validating webhook. If you really wanted to solve that in general, right? Because you don't really know what people want to do ahead of time. That's kind of my general take on that one. I'd be interested in thoughts on that, but I've been more focusing on the single field or very well-defined cases.
Yeah, I could imagine maybe you could get away with something like just allowing Boolean combinations of constraints on single fields. But yeah, I think the right thing to do is probably what you are doing, which is just look at the existing validations, see how much expressiveness you need to cover them.
Yeah, you get a whole lot of value. I'm going to try and order them when I write up a doc so people can kind of get a sense of like what we're doing the most and what we get the most bang for our buck from. There's a lot of formatting rules. There's a lot of like, this has to be a DNS name. This has to be a CIDR. There's just a ton of that stuff. And there's a surprisingly large number of like numeric constraints. Like this has to be within this range. This has to be non-negative. There's a ton of stuff has to be non-negative. And
yeah, that
right
actually
now,
that one actually gets back to an API expression thing, because in our doc on API design principles, it explicitly says, don't use unsigned ints because some languages don't have good bindings for unsigned ints. So
yeah,
we kind of paint ourselves into that corner.
Yeah, and some of the gaps that we have today to get a sense of like what the value is to doing this is our native types are exposed. You can go and get the open API for them. But right now, if you ask for open API, you don't even know if a string is an enum or not, right? Like we express as an enum, there are only a various number of enumerable values that it can have, but you just see string in the open API spec.
Yeah.
So that's like super low hanging fruit. Like OpenAPI understands the concept of an enum. We can tell you that. We can tell you what the valid, the values are. And so there's just a lot that's lost when we hand over open API spec to people. And that also translates into CRDs, right? You define them in open API spec. So if you can't define some kind of validation rule that would be very sane to have there, or if it's just ignored, then you don't get the benefit. And one thing that you'll see a lot of people do is they'll like embed like job spec or something inside of a CRD. They'll do that through Kube Builder or something. So you've actually taken the open API of native type and embedded it into your own CRD as a way of saying like, you know, I'm defining some kind of workload, and within that workload, you're going to be able to define like some type of pod or job that you're going to run. If that validation is much, much weaker than the native type validation, you can create the CR, you can create the custom resource for your workload, but then when some controller tries to actually create a job from that, it'll fail, right? Much later in this pipeline, much harder to debug. So getting that validation stronger, so it's really clear when you create CRs, they fail to validate because you did something wrong. That's much more user-friendly, much less user-hostile than just having like some controller break way down the line. So there's a bunch of like really pragmatic reasons to go do this.
Sounds great.
Yeah, so I'll try and get a write-up, and I'll try and have more for next week. So I will make sure to put an item on here.
Thanks.
Thank you. That sounds great.
Okay, then we got this, and do we have something new in the misc items? I think I saw some emails about Open API.
Yeah, I've added so many things in there.
Oh yeah.
Jenny, have you been able to make progress on this?
No, and I think we're doing something before this, right? Something that just
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Because this one is a bigger change, and there was something we needed to change that was like a subset of this or a prerequisite of this. Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's the server side doesn't have no force. This is probably a CLI bug that we could fix. Doesn't seem super big, but
yeah,
some
okay.
people like that the resource gets deleted and then recreated when it couldn't be applied. That makes little sense to me, but
I think I don't know if force does that, but a colleague recently encountered that you can't change the match labels on a deployment.
yeah.
And you had to recreate it, and I don't know if force would have solved that, but I can see people wanting that.
I don't think it's a terrible thing to do, so we could probably do it.
Whoa, sorry. Deleting an object and recreating it is a big deal in
I know.
you know, it changes the UID, and
Yeah.
I don't know, but you know, I have some workloads, or really colleagues have some workloads that are very sensitive to UIDs, and you know, they have finalizers on objects, and you may request the object to be deleted, but it's not going to go away for a while.
Yeah, I know. That's why I said I don't understand why people would use this false flag, but it looks like some people do, and we've provided it to kubectl apply in the past. Again, I don't think I would have done that personally, but now that we have the flag, I think server-side has to deal with it.
I've never seen it been used on apply. I only knew it for deletion and the grace period stuff. But that's yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's because of this service thing where you can't change something because of the cluster IP thing.
If we don't add and support it, it will break kubectl calls that currently apply when we default. So if you have a CI pipeline that calls kubectl apply and has a force in it, without the parameter, I think we fail, or is it a general command?
You're talking about the defaulting of the protocol?
Yeah, if we default to server-side apply,
Yeah.
and server-side apply
right.
doesn't, the command could fail because it doesn't understand force.
Yes. Yeah, that's a change that's going to break for people.
So
I mean, it looks like it's not doing anything. The force command, the force argument is not failing if you have server side, as you can see, but it's not doing anything. It's just being ignored.
that's a question. Is it not doing anything, or is the command failing because you provide an argument it didn't know?
No, it's failing because it does nothing.
Okay.
Because you know how we have like a test case where like if this is server side apply, do this. If it's not, then do that. And it's just that in the if server side apply, do this, we don't do anything about the force flag.
Mm-hmm. Ah, okay, yeah, okay. Okay. I mean, when we, at some point, when client-side apply is history, would we replace force conflicts with force? Because for me, force makes sense on the conflict side, but if there is nothing else, then force conflicts.
Yeah, I see where you're
I would
coming
expect
from.
force to do that.
I wish we could clean up the flags. We have way too many flags right now in kubectl, and having server-side apply and client-side apply being the same command means we have many arguments that only make sense for one and not the other, and that's not a good design principle.
So should we have a different verb for server-side apply?
I mean, I wish we did, but it seemed like people more important than me had a different opinion. The problem is that apply is the perfect word, and any other word that we're going to take is going to be less good than apply.
When we make apply server-side apply default, we could make client-side apply a different command.
I mean, no, I think eventually the goal is to just remove it.
Yeah. And until then, should we print a warning when people use a parameter
No,
that's
guys,
not...
come on. You know the way this goes.
Yeah.
You introduce a new verb. I'm sorry if you can't get the name you want. You have to settle for another name. You eventually retire the name that it has the meaning you don't want. I'm sorry if you can't keep the ideal name, but maybe after a long gap of 10 releases, you can reintroduce the old name with the new meaning. But if you don't want confusion amongst versions of kubectl and versions of scripts and programs that clients wrote, you have to do it this way.
I said exactly this to some. I already suggested exactly this because I think that's the right way to do it. But again, I'm not making all the decisions. Can you open an issue and say exactly this?
Well, I think you're a little more familiar with the real motivations and the mismatches. I'm going to suggest maybe you should.
Yeah. So the problem is that people want to be able to change it without users really knowing it, which is already questionable.
Right. The point is that you guys are reviewing right now the reasons why that doesn't really work. So you have your fingers on these reasons better than I do. So that's why I'm suggesting.
No, I understand. I'll try and see what I can do. Yeah.
A better word than apply. If we have to change the name apply, it was already hard to adapt to API expressions, so we have to make it fix.
My opinion, the driving consideration should not be the quality of the word chosen. The driving consideration needs to be supporting evolution in a way that doesn't break stuff. And you settle for the best name you can come up with.
Okay, and let's make a new issue about that, and we'll see. Was this one the one we saw in different repos that use client Go, where it dropped the fields v1? What are you working on, Anton?
Oh yeah, we have a bug because 1.15 client Go doesn't know about this field. It's being dropped, and we carelessly made it required, which means that any 1.15 client Go is not going to work with 1.16 Kubernetes. So we're trying to fix that. The good thing is that almost no one used server-side apply in 1.15 because it was alpha. And because nobody used server-side apply, or at least the managed fields, before it got enabled by default. That's also why we didn't realize. But some people still have 1.15 client Go controllers running on 1.18 API servers, and that's why it's breaking now.
Okay, so if it's missing, you now ignore that it's missing?
So now, yeah, we're trying to do the right thing if it's missing.
Okay, cool. That does it need to be backported? Can it be backported?
Yeah, it has to be backported, I think. It's not
I
too
mean,
bad on 1.17 and 1.16 because it only applies to objects that have been server-side applied, but still we don't want to break if somebody server-side applies an object in 1.16.
Okay, should we, is it the right position down here, or should we move it somewhere else?
I don't know, we already have a fix and everything, so it's not, you know,
Yeah,
it's
okay.
not like something we're gonna track for a long time.
Okay. Update fails in CRD because of managed fields update.
Okay, so yeah, we have a bug somewhere in the conversions during CRD tracking somewhere of some sort of conversion. I don't know what. So first of all, it shouldn't fail the update because it used to work. So this is backwards incompatible. So we want to be able to ignore these errors and not break everything because we failed to manage track the managed fields. And we want to fix the underlying issue, which is the problem with the conversion.
Oh, I think I saw the PR. So you only log errors now?
Yeah, we want to just log an error and not fail. That's the workaround. We don't know anything about the underlying issue.
Okay. And we still got the API service one. And
Yeah, that might be a problem if we move server-side apply to a default, because I mean people won't be able to use kubectl apply for that. They'll have to specify the flag specifically.
okay. And yeah, manually updating managed fields should be impossible through sub-resources. That should be related to the sub-resource issues we already have, I think. Not exactly.
I don't know what this means.
That you shouldn't be able to set the managed fields in metadata when sending a request to a sub-resource.
What about the managed fields for the sub-resource, though?
They're tracked with the main resource.
That's my point. So when updating a sub-resource, there should be some changes allowed.
Yeah, it means you're not allowed to access the managed fields directly and overwrite them manually. They should still change through the update flow, but you shouldn't be able to change them.
I see. So as to say, the request from the client shouldn't be able to talk about the updating the managed fields. Okay.
Yeah. That's a good way to say it, yeah.
And we had don't track managed fields sometimes. I can remember something.
Yeah, I don't know if we have a strong use case for that.
Was
Clayton
that
mentioned, like,
Clayton? Yeah,
yeah.
event stuff.
I don't see a strong argument for that. We could change the event so that we're not tracking every single field for the event because it doesn't make
Make
sense.
it atomic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
That means you would get a conflict for every single change that controllers should force anyways.
I don't know if anybody is server-side applying events.
Yeah, I thought events
Yeah.
were right once, right? I mean, and they're not the only thing. Like subject access review and token review, they're right once also, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Certificates
really matter.
as well.
But we're
No.
increasing the size
CSRs,
of
yeah.
events because of that.
Right. So for these things that are right once, it makes sense to just not do this stuff.
Yeah.
And the problem is that these things that are right once, they can be quite numerous. Events can be numerous. I've seen, unfortunately, cases where subject access reviews get numerous. Hopefully CSRs are not numerous. But, you know, I think there are cases where this will matter.
Events are certainly numerous, though.
Indeed.
Okay, yeah, and we have a long backlog that we probably don't need to go through, except maybe the API clients, but I think nothing changed here. We still don't have somebody to do it.
Yeah, forget about the backlog.
Yeah.
I think we're running out of time anyway.
Yeah. Today it was another point where I think for you it's a bit hard, and Daniel also had an overlap. Should we try to find a different meeting again, or is it still working? Because if not, I could remove it.
For me, it's good. What about? Wait, what did you say?
Daniel also had a conflict today. I don't know if that's a regular problem or.
Personally, I'm fine. I think Mike, it was a problem for Mike.
It was the first half of the meeting is a conflict for me.
Okay, let's see if 10 would be better. Yeah, I could send the poll. I'll try and send the poll.
So later works for me.
Okay,
anyways.
cool.
That's what I said.
Early
Half
as
an hour
well,
later.
that's where you're sleeping.
Right, half an hour later works better for me.
Good.
Okay, I'll look into it.
Great.
Thank you, Kevin.
Let me stop recording.